Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. We'll start with a look at the top headlines this hour. Ukrainian, US and Russian officials to hold security talks in the UAE on Friday, the Kremlin confirmed, following a meeting of top US negotiators with President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. US President Donald Trump withdraws invite for Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney to join his newly constituted Board of Peace for Gaza. NATO Secretary Mark Rutte says he and US President Trump had discussed in Davos how the transatlantic alliance should best defend the Arctic against Russia and China. Japan's lower house of parliament dissolves ahead of snap election on February 8. The announcement for snap elections comes just 3 months after Sanai Takaichi became the nation's first woman prime minister. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te offers talks with Ukraine to crack down on sanctions busting after Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky name-checked the island as a source of illicit missile components. Australian police intensify search for a gunman who allegedly killed 2 women and a man in rural town in New South Wales. That's Australia's most populous state. 2 teenagers among 6 missing after a landslide hit a busy campground on New Zealand's North Island as rescuers worked around the clock to locate survivors under the rubble. TikTok announces it established a majority American-owned joint venture to operate its US business, allowing the company to avoid a ban over its Chinese ownership. And viewers, Venezuela's parliament has given initial approval to a bill that would open the country's oil sector to private investors, marking a dramatic shift away from decades of state control. The move comes less than 3 weeks after longtime leader Nicolas Maduro was ousted with US backing. Lawmakers endorsed the proposal on the first reading, allowing private companies to independently explore and extract oil if the bill passes a second vote. The reform could pave the way for the return of major US energy firms, a key demand of US President Donald Trump. Listening to the lawmakers speaking to the press post the reading.
Reformas necesarias que permitan un acelerado incremento en la producción de petróleo en Venezuela. Ya lo hemos dicho en varias oportunidades, se lo escuché varias veces al presidente Nicolás Maduro, se lo he escuchado a la presidenta encargada del Celoína Rodríguez. El petróleo debajo de la tierra no sirve para nada. ¿De qué nos sirve decir que tenemos la más grande reserva de petróleo del planeta si las condiciones, desde el bloqueo y las sanciones hasta los mismos elementos engorrosos en la legislación impiden un acelerado proceso para que vayamos a la producción, al aumento de la producción de petróleo?
La ley de hidrocarburos es una de las más importantes, es la que puede generar mucho más riquezas y recursos a las finanzas del país, pero está apenas abriéndose esta discusión. Nosotros estamos dispuestos a dar esa discusión, a aportar lo que tengamos que aportar, eso sí, con respetando la ley, respetando el reglamento, respetando la democracia, el debate, y de nuevo, bienvenidos a la economía moderna.
Joining me now in this discussion is Ambassador R. Vishwanathan, former ambassador to Venezuela, and he joins us from Kochi. Thanks very much, Ambassador, for joining us in this discussion. You've obviously served there in the country. Now, yesterday, in fact, day before at Davos, Trump had said that they now have access to Venezuelan oil, about 50 million barrels of those, and says the cooperation with Venezuela has now, increased after the ouster of Maduro and after Trump captured him. How do you see Venezuelan oil now being extracted and used by the entire of Americas?
See, for Venezuela, oil is life and death. they have to come to become totally dependent on oil for exports and budget. Now, this has been the oil industry and exports have been crippled by the American sanctions. So for the last decade plus, the Venezuelan oil company, the PDVSA, the national oil company, was not able to do maintenance, repair, or invest in increasing the production.
Right.
So the oil sector desperately needed this reform. They don't have the money, they don't have the technology, then they need materials. All these were stopped by United States because of sanctions. So with or without this American intervention, in any case, Venezuela needed this reform desperately, and they needed foreign oil companies to come in.
But with the US now controlling much of Venezuela, at least indirectly, how do you think that is going to pan out?
You see, suppose this had not happened, suppose the regime, the Maduro was not kidnapped and the Americans did not go in,
Yeah.
what would have happened? These sanctions would have crippled the oil sector further, the economy would have collapsed, and they would have been driven to the wall. But now there is an opening for the people of Venezuela, for the country. They need oil income desperately. You know, in the 1960s and 70s, they were exporting 3.5 million barrels of oil. But last year, it was almost about 800,000. And that too because of the involvement of Chevron. So they need to produce and export the oil for their survival.
Ambassador, now Trump also said that all major oil firms in the America, they want to now invest in Venezuela. They're ready with Trump. Do you think that really is the case, and is Venezuela really in a condition to be invested at?
Of course it is. What Exxon said that it is uninvestable was wrong. I think they were just playing. Because they have invested a lot, several multi-billion dollars in Guyana, and the oil price is low now at the moment. So that is the reason why they were not so enthusiastic. But other companies are interested. In any case, you don't have to start from scratch for exploration of oil in Venezuela, which already has a proven reserves of 300 billion barrels. Of course, the oil is a bit extra heavy, but the American refineries they can handle, and the Indian refinery and the Chinese refineries can handle. I don't see any serious problem.
What about the infrastructure? Is that appropriate for oil to be exported to other parts of the world?
It is all there. It has been there since the 1960s. Just they have to do the maintenance, repair, and restart everything all over again.
Okay. Ambassador, thank you very much. To continue to stay on with me, please, as we proceed. Viewers, the US House of Representatives has rejected a Democratic-backed resolution aimed at blocking President Donald Trump from deploying US military forces to Venezuela after the vote ended in a rare tie and fell short of the majority needed for passage. GOP leaders were forced to keep the vote open for more than 20 minutes while Republican Congressman Wesley Hunt rushed back to Washington from the campaign trail to cast the decisive vote. Democrats accused Republican leadership of bending House rules as two Republicans, Don Bacon of Nebraska and Thomas Massie of Kentucky, broke ranks to support the resolution. The measure would have invoked the War Powers Act to require Trump to withdraw US troops from Venezuela. The Trump administration has maintained that no US troops are currently deployed there and pledged to seek congressional approval before any major military action. Democrats, however, argued oversight is essential after US forces captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in a covert operation earlier this month without prior notice to Congress. Request Ambassador to join us back in the discussion here. Ambassador Vishwanath, do you think Trump is really going to wait for congressional approval to move forces in Venezuela if needed?
This is only academic. He did not have the intention to send troops to Venezuela. Why? his interest is not going to occupy, like in Afghanistan or Iraq, and democratize the country. No, he just wants oil. And for oil, the regime is delivering for him, and he says he's very happy with their cooperation. Why would he send the troops? For what?
All right, sure. Do you think the Congress has enough to stop him if the House does not have adequate votes?
You see, it would be foolish on the part of United States to send any troops, because they have to fight door to door as they did in Iraq. The Chavistas, the followers of the President Chavez, the leftist militant, they are armed. And then the army itself is there. So the American troops have to fight the Venezuelan army and the Venezuelan armed militia. Why would they do it? For what?
All right, sure. Ambassador, thanks very much then for joining us and for speaking to us here at NewsX World. Now moving on, viewers, in a recent Truth social media post, Donald Trump has expressed his satisfaction for his role in saving TikTok for US users. This follows the announcement that TikTok's Chinese owner ByteDance has finalized a deal to establish a majority American-owned joint venture. The venture aims to protect US data, thus preventing a potential ban on the app, which has over 200 million American users. In his post, Trump has highlighted how TikTok played a significant role in his success over the younger voters during the 2024 presidential election. He has also thanked Chinese President Xi Jinping for approving the deal, noting that Xi could have rejected it, but he chose not to. The latest agreement stipulates that American and global investors will own 80.1% of the venture, with ByteDance retains only a 19.9% stake. The US and Chinese governments have reportedly signed off on the deal, though the Chinese embassy in Washington has not yet commented on it. I request Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo, to join me in this discussion. Dr. Nagao, thanks very much. Firstly, what's your opinion of the deal that has now been struck? And what does this really now talk about Trump and Xi's relationships? Of course, Trump has thanked Xi, but it must not be forgotten that he was the one to campaign since 2020 for the removal of TikTok from the US.
Yes, in case of the TikTok, there are two risks. One is the information going to China, and China controls the people who use TikTok, or the TikTok related information. China sends fake news to the United States. Something like that is one risk. But another risk is because many young users in the United States, so that's why in the election, these younger people want to get the information through TikTok. If President Trump will not use TikTok, in this case, these young voters will not vote for President Trump. So that's why these kind of two risks, President Trump need to manage it. So as a solution, this is the deal. If the U.S. company and U.S. workers manage this system, information will not going to China, and at the same time, the President Trump can use the TikTok to getting the support from the voters. So this time they agreed. And in case of the TikTok, indeed, this is the typical issue of the competition between U.S. and China. China has the potential to topple the #1 status of the United States. So that's why for the United States, China is anyway the long-term rival. But at the same time, this is long-term battle, long-term competition. So now the President Trump start to say G2, which means that this is the long-term Cold War between US and China. And the US and China leads many issues in the world, but it is not easy to destroy one just now. So they try to live together, manage the world together, but in the future, which one will be the #1 will be decided in the long run. But this kind of the image the U.S. President Trump has, so that's why the now strategy is managing the many issues with China, including this TikTok issue.
Sure. Dr. Nagao, thanks very much for your comments. I request you to stay on as we proceed now to cover news from Japan. Viewers, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has officially dissolved parliament, paving the way for snap election, which is scheduled for February 8. What follows is a 12-day election campaign, which kicks off next week, Tuesday. Takaichi, who made history as Japan's first female premier, took office just 3 months ago. She has enjoyed strong approval ratings so far and is hoping to leverage her personal popularity to help her party regain support that has suffered significant public losses in recent years. The ruling coalition, consisting of Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party and the Japan Innovation Party, holds a slim majority in the lower house. Key issues in the upcoming election campaign will focus on rising consumer prices and security concerns, particularly in relation to tensions with China. Meanwhile, Takaichi has urged voters to assess her fiscal policies, military buildup, and tougher immigration stance, stressing her vision for a strong and prosperous Japan. Request Dr. Nagao to join me back in the discussion here. Dr. Nagao, to talk to us about some of the key policy measures that have been effected during the 3 months of Takaichi and how that is going to shape the snap poll results on after February 8.
In this case, interesting thing is Takaichi's popularity will increase the member of the national diet of the national diet who support Takaichi. So that's why currently the coalition with coalition partner LDP and one coalition partner will get more support through the election. The key is key interesting point is after today the election season will start, but this season is only 16 days, so very shortest. Why this is shortest? Because if this season is enough long, there is a possibility scandal has happened and the popularity of the Prime Minister Takaichi will decline. So to avoid such kind of situation, she start election and start a voting day as soon as possible, and she will win because of her current popularity. Is her tactics. Of course, on surface, she said that because of the annual budget negotiation in the national diet, she need to hold the election as soon as possible. But this is a reason on surface. Real reason backside is, of course, she want to win. That is my solution. And but one more thing that we should not forget is after the current government ruling party LDP will increase the number of the seats in the national diet, who will lose seat in the same houses. So, because in this case, currently there are two types of the opposition party. One is right, another one is left. Right opposition party is indeed buffer zone for the PM Takaichi. If the left opposition party try to attack the PM Takaichi's policy, in this case, right-wing opposition party try to stop it because they share the similar policy with PM Takaichi, and the opposition party fight with opposition party could happen if the left opposition party try to attack the PM Takaichi. So indeed, this right-wing opposition party is a very good supporter of the PM Takaichi, and it looks like the buffer zone for the PM Takaichi to erase the attack from the left opposition party. So that's why if in the elections, many supporter of the right opposition party will change their opinion and support the PM Takaichi. In this case, right opposition party will be disappear, and left opposition party will attack PM Takaichi directly without buffer zone. So That is a concerning point, even if the PM Takaichi's party will increase the number in the national diet.
But the fact that she has about 70% approval rating, do you think, in fact, how much of it do you think is because of her tough stance against China?
Of course, she is not something too bold lady. So she is bold enough but courageous, but she is not adventurous something character. So that's why she tried to manage this situation well, I think. Because anyway, China is focusing on Taiwan or the security in the East Asia. In this case, it is unavoidable to face conflict with China. For Japan, this is the situation because of the location, because of the rising power of China. So small conflict could happen, but at the same time, this small conflict should not become the total war. So that's why how to manage is the matter and the skill is matter. In case of the PM Takaichi, the view from the last 3 months, she managed the situation very well. So that's why she has a skilled politician to manage the relation with China, I think.
All right. Do you think she will still lead her coalition partner after this snap poll? Because as of now, the two only have a slim majority.
It relies on the number. Because right-wing opposition party were very surprised this time because suddenly the election came and they haven't prepared enough. And if the election has happened, of course the voters are same with the ruling party, so that's why these right-wing opposition parties will face the problem. Same voters, the right-wing opposition party and the ruling party try to eat each other. This means that even if the opinion is similar, but they need to fight each other. So that's why how many voters they can get, how many seats they can get will decide the power balance between two, the ruling party and right-wing opposition party. But we should not forget one important fact is there are two houses in the national diet. One is lower house, another one is upper house.
Yeah.
And this election will be the lower house, not upper house. In the upper house, still the right-wing opposition party has some seat, and the LDP, current ruling party, needs their cooperation. So that's why even if the right-wing opposition party reduce the number, still they can keep some influence towards the ruling party.
All right, Dr. Nagao, thank you very much then for your assessment of the situation for our viewers. Moving ahead now, we're going to cover some news from Pakistan, where the death toll from a devastating fire at Gul Plaza in Karachi has risen to at least 67. The blaze, which broke out on Saturday, has left dozens dead and many still missing. Rescue teams continue their search through the severely damaged building, with DNA testing underway to identify the victims. Authorities say the fire likely started due to a short circuit, but the exact cause remains under investigation. Relatives of the missing are frustrated with the slow rescue operations and have criticized the authorities for not acting more quickly. Karachi has seen similar deadly fires in the past, raising concerns over safety standards. And that's a wrap on this edition of the World Report. Thanks for watching NewsX World.